Hare Krishna, dear devotees. We'd like to welcome you to the Books Are the Basis week. And I'm here with some very, very illustrious panel from our European community. I'm very grateful and honored that they could spare their valuable time to be with us on this most important topic that we're discussing, Srila Prabhupada's books and cultivation of the habit of reading Srila Prabhupada's books. So with your permission, Maharajas, I'll just take a moment to do my best to try to introduce you. Their bios are each 2 or 3 pages long, so I'm only going to give a very short snippet to introduce these wonderful persons who, of course, for most of us, really need no introduction. I'm sure all of them are easily recognizable. First, we have His Holiness Candramauli Maharaj, who has been based in Slovenia and kind of focusing preaching there for the last amount of time during the pandemic. Now I think Maharaj is in the U.S., where he also travels and gives his association, but also spending time in Croatia and Bosnia, time to time in Switzerland, and also coming to London and the UK to give his association, giving great classes, amazing kirtans, and I think many devotees also recognize Maharaj's great inspiration for dancing, enliveningly like that. So we're really, really blessed and grateful to have you with us today, Maharaj. Thank you very much for taking your valuable time to be with us.
Hare Krishna.
Next, we have His Holiness Krsna Maharaj, who's with us and well known as an erudite scholar and also traveling and preaching, but focusing his time for the last year and 3 months, also during the pandemic, in Poland and spending time there with devotees. Maharaj also serves as the European Minister for Cow Protection, and previously was also Minister for Deity Worship. And Maharaj also travels throughout Europe, different places, Slovenia and Germany, also spends time in China and in South America. And we're also very grateful, an amazing kirtaneer, and always giving very deep and amazing classes. I think one that I remember a seminar or class on, especially the prasadam that's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So that was also very inspirational, being someone who likes prasad. So Maharaj, we're very honored to have you here with us. And thank you very much for taking your valuable time.
Thank you for having me.
And definitely last but not least, we have His Holiness Yadunandan Maharaj. And Maharaj was serving for many years, 12 years in Radhadesh. And, for me, most known as serving with the Bhaktivedanta Institute there and helping to establish things very much focused on education and helping to train devotees. Now he's president of New Braj Mandala in Spain and spends most of his time there in Spain and Portugal. But also before the pandemic was traveling even to Cuba and preaching and giving his association there. So Maharaj is always a very enlivening personality. And I remember back in the days when Radhadesh would have those kind of week-long seminars, and Maharaj was always there giving really wonderfully inspiring classes. So it's an honor to have you with us also. Yadunandan Maharaj, thank you very much for taking your time.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So we're very honored to have you here, Maharajas, and we just wanted to spark the conversation around how we can kind of practically inspire devotees to really dive into and read Srila Prabhupada's books. So I thought I would just ask some questions, and if you could please give us your deep reflections and inspirations. maybe we'll start with Candramauli Maharaj. And just with the first question, Maharaj, is, I mean, how much emphasis do you think is given to the importance of reading Srila Prabhupada's books and the yatras where you travel and preach? Do you feel it's enough, or do you feel it could be more, or how do you see that emphasis is being given?
The emphasis that I give, or the emphasis that should be given?
Maybe a little bit of both, Maharaj.
Oh, well, I've been doing a daily Zoom class since the pandemic started back in March of 2020. And part of that class is to make sure that I emphasize the activities of the class centered around verses from Srila Prabhupada's books, with the encouragement that the devotees should understand this knowledge beyond the fact that I'm giving the class. They should also read and study what we're talking about on their own time to be able to go deeper into the subject matter. I think there's always a lack of emphasis or even a lack of activity in reading and studying Srila Prabhupada's books, and there's many reasons why that is happening. But from the position of being in charge of the devotees or yatras or preaching, I think that we should be making that a regular point of our preaching, that everything that we're saying, everything that we're trying to communicate for people to understand it, is all coming from Srila Prabhupada's books. So I don't think there's never enough emphasis on it. And the way to think about how to increase that emphasis can be done in different ways through various types of programs.
Okay.
Along with individual reading and group readings, and maybe seminars based on the importance of reading Srila Prabhupada's books. All these things are foundational to our practice of Krishna consciousness, and they need emphasis.
Powerful. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Krishna Kshetra Maharaj, do you have anything you would like to add or subtract?
Subtract. Well, how about underlining?
In red pen?
Yeah, no, in blue pen, whatever. As far as whether there's sufficient emphasis, I think Candramauli Maharaj put it well, that there's never enough emphasis. And I think we have to recognize a tension within our mission, that on the one side, we're so much emphasizing preaching and spreading the mission, outreach. And outreach takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. And there is perhaps a general sense prevailing that if we do the outreach with enough energy and determination, that everything that's in the books will be revealed to us. I remember this was told to me. I remember very specifically in very early years of my career as a brahmachari. In one of the Bhagavatam classes, one of the leaders was saying exactly that. We don't need to spend much time at all reading, because if we just distribute the books, then we will realize. Of course, there's some truth to that. And at the same time, I like to remember, I don't remember which year it was, but it was quite early on, Srila Prabhupada saying, now, I'm paraphrasing, now we have enough devotees, now it's time to boil the milk.
I think we all remember that expression. And someone estimated that there were perhaps altogether around 300 devotees at the time that he said that. And what did he mean by boiling the milk? Specifically, he meant we would focus on reading, studying, understanding, comprehending the books. So that would be one. So for as far as emphasis goes, and what I'm trying to contribute in that, I can't claim to be doing daily Zoom meetings because I'm only doing once a week, but very much the same thing. I'm trying to emphasize that we consider Srila Prabhupada's writings. So I'm discussing based on those writings. And something which I've just started, I mean, this is maybe a bigger topic, but some of you may know the GBC Shastra Advisory Council has recently come out with a course in what is called Vaishnava hermeneutics. The word hermeneutics scares away a lot of people, but it just means, it means interpretation, literally. And when we hear the word interpretation, we remember Prabhupada saying, no need for interpretation. But what does Prabhupada mean by that? That we need to discuss. So there's a whole course now, and I would say it's a quite sophisticated course. And I believe that in due course of time, more and more senior devotees, having taken that course, there will be a trickle-down effect that devotees will have a deeper appreciation of how it's possible to go more deeply into Srila Prabhupada's books. It's a skill which can be learned, and that's very much what's happening with that course.
That's amazing, Maharaj. Thank you for sharing that. Maybe this is some information we can get and also share, on this course. So you're saying this is available at the moment for leaders or for the devotees in the general community?
It's still kind of in process. It's been tested. There have been 2 groups who have taken the course, 2 groups of leaders with extremely positive responses in surveys after the course. And it will be run again, I believe, in October or November. This is beginning to be discussed exactly when and how it will happen. The hope is to train trainers. In other words, there's need for more devotees who have done the course who can then give the course. So it's going to take some time, I believe, before it's widely available. The sort of initial intention, we may say, is for devotees who have completed Bhakti Shastri. Not that it's a strict requirement, but it's certainly a help. One has gone through that kind of Shastra training. And with Bhakti Shastri, with having done the hermeneutics course, then we'll see more and more spread of the availability of this course, I think.
It's wonderful. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for sharing. And Yadunandan, Maharaj, anything you could add or further underline, and maybe how you're emphasizing or you see reading Prabhupada?
Yes, I was thinking that there may be 2 ways of emphasizing the reading of Srila Prabhupada's books. One will be explicit, like mentioning it in lectures and talking about how important it is. And another will be implicit by developing activities that contribute to to the reading of Srila Prabhupada's books. Like I was thinking, I don't say so much explicitly. Of course, I may mention it in some lectures, but I do participate in courses organized by the institute we have in Spain. We have an educational institute named Instituto de Estudios Bhaktivedanta. This is for the Spanish-speaking world. And now during the pandemic, we are offering a number of online courses. So that's very good because devotees from different countries around the world join in, and it creates a stimulus to study Srila Prabhupada's books. Also in New Brajamandala, we are having a study of Pada Padma, first and second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We have 2 lectures every week on the topic. So it is done so that devotees in the community can follow the course. They don't just attend the lectures, but they can do the self-study according to their abilities. And like that, and then other sometimes we are invited to teach in the Vrindavan Institute, VHC, or the Mayapur Institute, one little module here and there. So it is satisfying for me to be engaged in this way, especially serving as president. I don't think I could survive being the president of New Brajamandala without having some engagement with Srila Prabhupada's books.
That's a very powerful point, and I think maybe also Krishna Chaitra Maharaj brought up this, that the power of Srila Prabhupada's book. Of course, Krishna Chaitra Maharaj mentioned, being instructed at a young age that kind of doing the service, there would be a certain level of revelation. And it sounds like that you're saying also in doing the service that you need the support of Srila Prabhupada's books. So I'm just wondering, how do you see that devotees who are in leadership position, also as you are, Maharaj, well, all of you are as spiritual masters and taking responsibility, how is it that reading Srila Prabhupada's books kind of empowers you? How do you find that you yourself are empowered and it gives you sustenance? Like you said, Maharaj, if you didn't have that contact with Srila Prabhupada's books. Anyone would like to offer an answer to that? Any thoughts?
Well, the word sustenance you used, I think it's interesting. We hear a lot these days about the pursuit of sustainability, economic, ecological, and so on. Sustainability. So here we might want to speak about spiritual sustainability.
Yes.
And of course, we understand the beginning of the whole process of bhakti is hearing. And this hearing is our nourishment. It's how our spiritual body is nourished. And I think it's also relevant to think about the classical system from the Upanishads, from Vedanta, of a 3-step process. There's hearing, shravanam, then what's called mananam, which you could say means thinking or reflecting on. And then third is nididhyasanam, which I like to say is like digesting. We just like food, like prasadam, we take in and we receive it in the body. And then there's a process by which that becomes imbibed into the body. So, of course, we say this process of imbibing what we hear that's what seva is. And we have experienced that as we do seva, that inspires us to hear more. And so it's a cycle. It's a perpetuation of sustenance. So we might want to reflect on that idea of sustenance and sustainability. What is it about the books of our founder Acharya that sustains our movement, our mission?
Oh, that's wonderful, Marge. I love that spiritual sustainability and hearing is nourishment. Chandramauli, Marge, anything you could add to that or anything you would like to say on that point of how Prabhupada's books help to sustain us?
Not only sustain us, but enlighten us and on a direction on how to organize and execute our service. It gives enlightenment. It reminds us of what Prabhupada has said and how we can apply this to the particular situation we're in. Mm-hmm. But it also stimulates the whole idea of the intelligence, which will work in different areas of our service. So it's a needed part of our, what we say, overall exercise as a devotee to stimulate the intelligence with that knowledge that is the absolute principle of the execution of our devotional service, which is foundational with Srila Prabhupada's books. But it's very inspirational. I'm to speak in a very simplistic way, is that if I don't read, I don't find that same inspiration in my service. When I do read, I find my service is more inspiring and more joyful, you might also say. And I have to, as I think that was mentioned by, I think Yadunandan Maharaja, that by doing that, it just expands our whole awareness of our activities in devotional service. Both in the need for the activity and the inspiration that inspires the activity. So if I don't read regularly Srimad Bhagavatam, I feel like the day something's missing. I don't feel that same inspiration. And when I do read, I feel like, yes, this is Krishna consciousness. This is what it's all about, is to understanding deeper what we need to do as a devotee and how we need to do it also. Prabhupada's books are they're also very practical in understanding how to carry out our day-to-day activities in devotional service, especially how to interact with others, how to see our service and how to approach it with the needed amount of information or knowledge that's required. So for me, it's like nourishment.
It's nourishment, yeah. So it's very practical. What I got from Marge was that it's very practical knowledge of how to, I guess, what was the word that was used? Nididhyasanam? Is that how you pronounce it? Nididhyasanam?
Nididhyasanam.
Nididhyasanam.
Dhyasanam.
Nididhyasanam.
Nididhyasanam. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's there's also the real practical application comes from Prabhupada's books, how we should act as a devotee. conduct ourselves. One question that actually, when I was speaking to some devotees, that came up, and is there a difference in this question, maybe for Yadunandan Maharaj? Is there a distinction between just reading Srila Prabhupada's books and studying Srila Prabhupada's books? I know Krishna Kshetra Maharaj mentioned these three Upanishadic aspects for reading. So is there a difference? Is it okay just to read, or do we have to study? And what does that look like? Is there a difference in effect?
Yeah, what comes to mind is that both, what's important, like Candramauli Maharaj was giving the example of, it is giving us nourishment. And this reminded me of the last purport of Madhya Lila in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Srila Prabhupada says that if we don't read all the books that have been published, we will become weak. And as human beings become weak if they don't eat, then we will fall down. We'll eat, sleep, and then fall down from devotional service. So I will say what's important is to eat. Okay, like studying, we could say, could be compared to eat by and chewing very nicely the food. But first we need to eat, and then we can chew it and ruminate like the cows do. Like Krishna Kshetra Maharaj is the minister of cow protection, so the cows take the food and back and forth and ruminate what's in the books. But we must start by eating. I remember one story I heard from Sadhya Shrestha Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada's disciple. He's based in Barcelona, in Spain. He was telling the story of a guru who was approached by a disciple. The disciple was saying, I'm reading the scriptures, but I don't remember anything. What is the use of it? So the guru told the disciple, gave a basket with coal and told him, empty the basket and go to the river and bring it full of water. So the disciple tried several times to bring the basket with the water, but when he was arriving to the place of the guru, the water was out because the basket couldn't keep the water. There were holes in it. So he tried that like 8 or 10 times. Finally, he came back to the guru and said, I'm sorry, Guru Maharaj, I'm not able to do this. All the water is going out, even though I'm trying. And then the guru asked him, what is the difference between the basket in the beginning and the basket now? And then the disciple realized before it was black and now it is clean. So even if we don't remember what we are reading, it is cleansing our minds and hearts all the time. So of course, the study is even better, but the main thing is that we read.
That is powerful. Thank you very much, Marge, for that anecdote. It's really, really, really wonderful, very purifying. And Chandramauli Maharaj, you talked about this principle of how we get knowledge from reading the books, and what Maharaj has just said is that it's very purifying and cleansing for our consciousness. So again, practical, how we can perform our service in the right mood and mentality. So as a spiritual master, how would you guide and instruct your disciples to read Srila Prabhupada's books? You said that you're doing online courses, reading with them regularly. Is there anything you would like to add to that? You mentioned some different programs that were going on like that. It seems you're having trouble hearing me, Maharaj. Sorry.
I got it. I was just the volume is a little sporadic sometimes. Yeah, one of the things that I've seen over the years, and one of the reasons why devotees somehow or other miss out on the opportunities to read, and it's also because of what else is going on in their life. But in order to overcome that, I say you must schedule a reading time daily. And I've done that, and I've found that once I get into that schedule, if for some reason I break it for whatever reason, I feel like I'm missing something, and so I'm immediately trying to get back to it. So this scheduling is part, I think, of is solidifying that daily reading activity, which is, I think, the only way you can actually keep that going, because people's lives, we find, are very much full, and seems like reading gets marginalized or even omitted amongst all the other activities. It gets minimized. But by scheduling it and keeping that schedule, we build this consciousness that this is not only important, but it, as you know, Yadunandan and Maharaja's example is quite excellent. It's purifying.
Very nice. Thank you, Marge. Actually, you just reminded me once I heard a devotee say, well, I gave a vow to chant 16 rounds, but I didn't give a vow to read Srila Prabhupada's books every day. So like that, I'm wondering, Ksetra Marge, how would you answer that? How would you answer that question that it's, I mean, we know how important it is, but, you know, we take a vow to chant, not necessarily to read. So sorry to put you on the spot, Marge.
And unless there's a personal motivation to read, unless one feels hungry, since we're using this nourishment image analogy, unless you feel hungry, you will not want to eat. One thing that I feel is important that we don't so much talk about. Srila Prabhupada told, I believe it was Burijan Prabhu, that he said, learn something and teach it to others.
Mm.
And I feel that what we need to do is help devotees understand and begin to think of themselves, see themselves as teachers, not only learners. Basically, from day one, we want to train. We say preachers. I like the term teacher, and if one has this understanding, then my experience is the way I read generally is I have a kind of standing question in my mind. How could I explain this to someone else?
That's great.
Or to others in general. And that keeps me, keeps me awake. And it keeps me being more of an active reader rather than a passive reader who is, looking for entertainment or whatever. So with this sense of challenge, like if we were told, if we tell even a new devotee, tomorrow we're going to put you on the Vyasa-san, and you're going to talk about this verse or whatever, then, whoa, oh, now I really have to get into it. And that's what Srila Prabhupada did. He, especially famously in Vrindavan, he would have devotees give class and he would sit and listen to them. Famously, Gurudas Prabhu tells about himself. He was quite in some anxiety that he was supposed to give class, thinking, "Oh, I can't remember a verse to save my life. All these other devotees, they're memorizing and quoting verses. I can't remember a verse to save my life." But his turn came. He gave a class as best he could. And afterwards, he went to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, "Very good class. Now I can retire."
Wow.
And he said it not once, not twice, but 3 times. He said to Gurudas Prabhu, now my devotees are giving good classes, so now I can retire. Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful. Yadunandan Maharaj, anything you could add to this?
Yes, something that I was reminded now, especially because Krishna Ksetra Maharaj is here, and when I was serving as the principal of Bhaktivedanta College in Radhadesh, I had the good fortune of having his association every year. He will come and teach at the college. And I remember one thing Maharaj said is that in relation to writing, the secret is every day write something.
Mhm.
So I think we can also apply the same principle to reading Srila Prabhupada's books, that every day we should read at least something, even if it is a very busy day, but take some time to read some verses, some pages, some chapters, some theme from Srila Prabhupada's books.
Mhm. Can I add one more thing?
Yes, please, Maharaj.
Yeah, something, just an exercise that I've been doing for the last, 6-7 years is systematically going through the Bhagavatam verse by verse, and then extracting or trying to extract the essence of the verse in a very, kind of sutra way, maybe a couple lines, and then copy paste that. And then I've been doing that with the Bhagavatam. So that helps me to really look at the verse and the purport in a more, scrutinizing way and see maybe many points within the verse that are emphasized, but try to find that point at which is the more outstanding point, and use that as an inspiration to get others to read Srila Prabhupada's books, especially the Bhagavatam.
Wow.
So that's the way I've been reading now. Previously, I used to just read, but now I'm just going through and taking out 2 or 3 lines, no more than that, from either the verse or the purport, which to me is the essence of what is being said.
Hmm.
And that really helps me to remember what I'm reading.
This sounds, again, like taking it to the next level. Instead of being a passive reader, becoming more of an active reader. And as Krishna Ksetra Maharaj was saying, starting with a question, how could I explain it? So as you're going forward, you're actually thinking, how can I sutrize this, like 1 or 2 sentences kind of thing?
Yeah, looking for the essence. It's not easy because everything is, in one sense, the essence when Prabhupada writes, but try to hone in on what Prabhupada is emphasizing as the main point as the verses go on, and then according to the theme of what is being said at the same time. So it gets me stuck sometimes, but it's interesting because it forces me to look deeper.
That's very powerful. So, I mean, with these topics, are there some programs and where you're preaching, Maharajas, that you could mention or share that with the devotees around the world that they could look to kind of implement, or somehow they can bring devotees together more, or just encourage and inspire them? Maybe Krishna Kshetra Maharaj, you'd like to?
Well, truth be told, I've been a bit preoccupied in the last several months, doing some other things a bit, with more reclusive modes because of the pandemic, especially writing. But I wanted to mention writing as also because Yadunandan Maharaj mentioned, writing can be also an impetus for active reading. And this is something that I have been doing for, some years, encouraging devotees to write in different modes as a response to a particular section of Bhagavatam Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I want to give one example of this that we have done most recently. It's in a sense related to reading, but it's also related to seeing. As we all know, Prabhupada put a lot of emphasis on the paintings, the illustrations in his books. And recently I've come across a particular tradition of writing in the West. It's called ekphrasis, in which you respond to a picture in words. Some of the most famous English poetry is in this style. So John Keats' Ode on a Grecian Urn is very famous. So recently I invited devotees to choose some image, this was before Janmashtami, find some image of baby Krishna that particularly strikes you, and write something in response to that particular image. And this really, it's interesting what comes out. It really stimulates, okay, so baby Krishna, let me think about how Krishna looks and the way Krishna is portrayed in a particular painting, and what is the action that's happening around his appearance, and so on. Anyway, so that's just one type of writing, but there's so many types of writing, and one type of writing which I'd like to encourage more, which I think could involve more devotees and could become inspirations for example, Sunday feast programs, is writing of dramas. And so, the nice thing about drama is, in many respects, it's especially easy to write. It's dialogue, and we all know how dialogue works. And there's a lot of room for, let's say, devotional creativity without, going off the edge. One can keep within the sphere of scripture. And one can create scenes which then it doesn't, for performance, I just want to add this because I think it can be applied to reading. Performance doesn't require memorization and, lots of rehearsals and so on, which nobody has time for. All that's needed is printed out scripts, and the actors become dramatic readers. And so you just run through the reading once, twice, maybe 3 times, and you're good to go. And it can be it can be it can be very attractive. It can attract devotees. It can attract new people because it brings to life well, it's bringing to life Srila Prabhupada's books in ways that are very engaging for everyone.
Very nice, very attractive. I think we've done that a few times here in London with Parivita Prabhu.
Yeah.
Right.
Very expert at that.
Yeah, he's expert.
Yeah, Yadunandan, Marge, anything you could add?
Yeah, well, this what Krsna Maharaj was speaking about, writing dramas and so on, reminded me of something we did during the Janmashtami festival. The previous day on Sunday, we had also festival activities, and we got together all the community of devotees in New Brajamandala, and then we divided into groups. So each group was meant to spontaneously, they will have some time to prepare, like half an hour or so, spontaneously perform a lila, a Krishna lila, whatever lila they wanted that inspires them the most. So during the preparation, I was moving around the groups, and this will include not only adults, but children will be there. And something that struck me is how well many of the children knew the Leelas because they had heard them. So in relation to reading, this brings to mind that, as the saying it goes, that use it or lose it. So in order to stimulate the devotees for reading, it's important that we find ways how to use it. Like, for example, those of us who are engaged in preaching as a service, naturally we are stimulated to read. We must read, otherwise we are not able to do our service. So if devotees are encouraged to share whatever they learn from Krishna consciousness in different forums, whether by giving lectures at the temple or to the public, or by writing, or by organizing, taking care of people in the congregation, even a small group of newcomers, and reading together with them, this can be a stimulation for stimulating devotees to read Srila Prabhupada's books, because they are going to use them in a particular way.
Good.
Nice. Use it or lose it. Very powerful, Marge. Yes. So giving an actual outlet where what devotees are reading, they can kind of practically put into action. Candramauli, Marge, anything else you would like to add?
To that particular.
Well, to the idea of ways that we can stimulate and encourage devotees to read.
Reading retreats.
There you go. Okay. What does that look like, Marge?
Well, maybe it's not so applicable or not easily applicable with the present situation, but when we're able to come together in a personal way, just coming and sitting down, reading, someone's reading, and then discussing based on reading. The whole principle of Bhakti Vriksha actually really it stimulates not only reading, but going deeper into the knowledge when it's being read. So doing the same thing in a group, picking a particular section of Srila Prabhupada's book. I focus a lot on Srimad Bhagavatam. That gives me the most inspiration. So finding something in Srimad Bhagavatam, bringing a few devotees together and just read and discuss. That discussion, as it says in Nididhyasanam, really inspires people to go further beyond that and to do more things from the experience they have in reading. In other words, to figure other ways that they can learn Krishna consciousness through Srila Prabhupada's books. So reading retreats are one. Let me see, I wrote something. We have something here that I can maybe read from. Study groups, Dr. Victor programs, regular classes, putting up slokas in your house of Prabhupada's books instead of decorating the walls with, well, of course, pictures are of Krishna and Krishna conscious pictures are always the nicest form of decoration. We can also, supplement that with verses.
Mhm.
So that's one way to keep people connected to the philosophy and to the importance of reading.
Very nice.
But I like the idea of just like we do japa retreats now. That has been something that's been regular now. We can do that also with Prabhupada's books, and in an organized way. And then how to organize that could be, according to a particular circumstance, but not large groups. Maybe more 4, 5, 6 people at a time would be something that could be easily done, where discussions could more or less flow. Read and then just get discussed.
And would you see, Marge, that reading out loud together or reading more individually and then coming together and collaborating and communicating?
I think reading out loud is good.
Mm-hmm.
At least it seems to have an effect. Either way is good, but reading out loud kind of forces everyone else to listen carefully.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very nice.
In order to get the benefit. One thing I don't think we discussed enough is what is the negative side of not reading Srila Prabhupada's books. And there's a lot in that category. So maybe that could be the up and coming discussion session. What happens when we don't read? What are the results that can come about by not reading? And I think there's a larger list than the positive side.
Can you give us one, Mari, since you brought it up? Can you just name?
Yeah. We speak the philosophical ideas, but we're off. We're saying that we're not really connected to what is actually the understanding. We may think we are. That's one of the things. Or we tend to read other things just to fulfill that need to read other books. So maybe going to other spiritual groups in order to get some kind of nourishment, or thinking we're getting nourishment, but everything's there in Srila Prabhupada. What I liked about what Prabhupada said in one of his lectures, he said, every subject matter that you need to know is in Srimad Bhagavatam. So that was that was a sutra, Prabhupada said. It's all there. If you carefully read and understand Bhagavatam, you'll find everything you need to know is in Srimad Bhagavatam. For our spiritual understanding and even for day-to-day practical life. So if we don't do that, we're going to go other places to look for answers that we may find is important in our day-to-day life.
Very nice. Thank you, Marge. So I think we'll prepare to close. Any closing words, Krishna Kshetra Marge? Anything you would like to say in conclusion for this session?
It's perhaps more of a detail than a general concluding remark. Couple of things. One is, I think that a much neglected feature of Srila Prabhupada's books, as produced, published by the BBT, is that they have excellent indexes.
Mm-hmm.
And if one is sort of not sure how one wants to read, then go to the index and find a topic. And you can very quickly become absorbed that way. Or you come with a question, and this is, I think, a very powerful way to read. Come to the books with a question. I had this morning. I was thinking about how in the classical Yoga Sutras, there's mention of tapas as one of austerity, as one of the principles of niyama. And in relation to something I'm preparing to write, I wanted to think about that in relation to Bhagavad Gita, which of course says so much about austerity, tapasya. So I just went to Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita index, the heading austerity. And, there you go. You're off and running. You have so much on that subject. So that's one point. Index, rediscover the indexes of Prabhupada's books. You'll be surprised what you find there. And the other thing I want to mention is because Candramauli Maharaj mentioned japa retreats. As some of you may know, there's also, since recently, a wonderful little book by Mahatma Prabhu called Japa Affirmations. And it occurred to me that a similar book could be written about reading Prabhupada's books, Affirmations. And in one of the meetings in Mayapur, I suggested that, and the sannyasis accepted, and they said, it's going to happen. I don't know when. But meanwhile, and this is the real point, I think everyone individually can sit down and make a list of reading affirmations. First, you need to know what is an affirmation. An affirmation is a present tense positive statement, such as, when I sit down to read, I feel nourished by Srila Prabhupada's books. Something like that, So it's a happening thing. And you may say, well, but that's not actually true. No, it becomes true by starting with the affirmation. Yeah, so making a little list, it might just be 2, 3, 4 such affirmations. The Japa Affirmations book of Mahatma Prabhu has 20 affirmations. Each one, he's given a little purport, 2 or 3 page purport for each one. So I think this could also be helpful, and it might eventually lead to something that could be, widely distributed and made available for devotees.
Amazing. That's wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Brilliant.
That's an excellent idea.
Great. Yadunandan Maharaj, anything in conclusion?
Something that I have seen during this pandemic period is that some devotees have created groups, reading groups online. So devotees living in different parts of the country, even sometimes with devotees from another continent speaking the same language, getting together and reading Srila Prabhupada's books. When usually I visit Swarup Maharaj, he's my Diksha Guru in America. During the pandemic, I didn't manage to do it. And something he does, he reads a lot, many hours a day, Srila Prabhupada's books. And he organizes lunch and breakfast readings. So while eating, someone is reading and everybody is listening. And now he's doing it online. So devotees from different places can join for the lunch reading. So what comes to mind is that if for whatever reason I'm weak to read, so then let me get together with others who are fond of reading and join them, and then it will become easier. Whether we do it face to face or we do it online. Either way, whatever way it works, like say by hook or by crook, we should read Srila Prabhupada's books.
That's a rhyme, right?
Yeah, it's by hook or by crook, read the book.
Vaisheshika Prabhu says, become a sage page by page.
I have a little rhyme that I say: read the creed, get up to speed. That's the need. Take the lead, and you'll be happy indeed.
Sounds like these could be in the Affirmations. Very wonderful. Thank you so much, Maharajas, for joining us and inspiring us. And I found this very nourishing, very uplifting. And I'm sure that all of our guests who are also watching at this time. So I really want to thank you genuinely from the bottom of my heart for all your amazing service dedicated to Srila Prabhupada's mission and helping to encourage and inspire devotees all over the world. I've personally benefited myself from all of your association, and I just want to thank you for that and for being here and allowing me to be in your association today. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
We are also happy that we got your association in such a wonderful and very inspiring way. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you much. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai.
Ah.
Jai, jai, jai.
Hare Krishna.